Hi, I'm Pam, and I would like to welcome you to the Live Authentically show. My team and I help other people step into their authentic realities. We do this a number of different ways. The show is obviously one of them. We also have a Facebook group of like minded people committed to spiritual growth and transformation, and we would love to have you join us there. liveauthentically.today/FB. I also launched my debut book in 2020. It's called SOAR, SOAR, and it's a spiritual experiential journey through a transformative life event, and shows how I partnered with the universe to create my new reality. So I have a great show for you guys today. On my show, I have Reverend Tracy L. Clark. Good morning.
Good morning. So happy to be here with you today.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have you. We have a great show planned today. But before we get rolling, and I'm going to ask you all about, I know you've been on this lifelong journey of healing and transformation and are doing such amazing work in the world. I would love to ask you how you live authentically every day.
It's a great question. You know what?
Thank you.
There's one thing I always say you should ask yourself in the morning. And it starts with, truthfully, how do I feel about this? Because throughout your day, if you want to stay in your flow, which is right for you, which may be different, right, for somebody else, ask yourself that question, truthfully, how do I feel about this? And you can change that at any time. But if you're walking in that energy, that's how it keeps you in line.
I love that. Such a beautiful answer and so, so powerful. And really, that really is the secret. I say, that I think the best kept secret is that we create our reality based on our emotions, based on how we feel. So the sooner we can tap into that and really gain that self-awareness about, how do I feel? What do I need? Right when we identify feeling misaligned or feeling like we're depleted, et cetera, refueling yourself, whether it's mind, body, or spirit, getting back to that place of alignment, because that's what this journey is about, this spiritual journey about getting back to the place of alignment and tapping into how you feel is step number one. I love that.
And when you say the word truthfully, it has an energetic vibration behind it that really aligns to what your truth is at that time. So people don't really talk that way. So there's a real shift behind it that a lot of people will come to me, and I've done it myself. I'm like, wait a minute. Yeah, maybe I don't want to do that. Or maybe that doesn't feel right. And that doesn't feel in alignment. So it's a pretty powerful word. And that word will definitely, it shakes your reality up quite strongly. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. So I'd love to hear about your journey. I know we've got so many places I want to go today. I know you've got a couple of books I would love to talk about, but I know you've been on this lifelong journey of healing and transformation. And I know you've had your various versions of rock bottom, feeling like maybe you've certain things were impossible, or maybe there wasn't hope in certain situations. So I'd love to hear you describe your journey and really color that in with the emotions in a way that I know you will, do so beautifully in an attempt to really draw in our listeners. And because I know there's so many people out there who are feeling many of the emotions that are felt on one's healing journey. And even though they're all different, there are still ubiquitous emotions that are sprinkled throughout all of our journeys, such as grief and fear and loss and regret, etc. So I'd love to hear you talk about your journey.
Yeah, it's so true. I think the big one too, and even to present day, a lot of people have uncertainty and fear. And I think whenever we make big changes in our lives, you're going to get uncertainty and fear. We don't exactly know what's on the other side. We got to, that saying, feel the fear and do it anyways, right? You just keep going through.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was a person who was born really, really sick. So I didn't know any different. I was in a very dysfunctional family. To condense it quickly, like when you have a lot of illnesses as a child coming into the world, and I tried to leave at within a matter of weeks. And then, magically got rescued by a doctor. So he's like, hey, wait a minute, I think you can save this child. So that was, somebody sent in to change that. And then, but I lived my whole life because I did have a few near-death experiences. I had a kidnapping when I was very young. Like I had a lot of trauma at a young age. We got my dad kicked us out of our home like at midnight and moved a girlfriend. And like, it was just very bizarre. So lots of trauma, lots of, living in shelter. We lived in a shelter, and then we lived in this, home for women in need, kind of like a stop for welfare, but in between. And so you're picking up on your mom's emotions, a lot of bullying. And I was a very empathic kid who thought I was just very strange. And I had, because I was born with a lot of physical issues, I also had a very strange, they would call it a tic, or they said a neurological problem, where my nerve system was so damaged, my eyes, my head, and my arms, they shook like uncontrollably. Like, as people would ask me if I was having a seizure. And that went right up till I was in my early 30s. So it was interesting because it was sort of, I call it my, whatever you want to call it. It's not a religious thing, but it was sort of my come to Jesus moment. I come on the floor. Like, I didn't believe in anything. I was afraid all the time. I was always looking over my shoulder, because those experiences, right? When you've had those traumas, you don't trust anything or anybody. I was in an abusive relationship. So I'm telling you, when I got on that knees and the doctors were saying, well, I don't know, nothing else we can do with you. Like, your body's shutting down. You've gone in and out of issues. But I always knew, like, I knew something was out there that was bigger than me, but I just thought it was a nut job. Like, because when I went through the kidnapping when I was 5, it opened a porthole, but it opened a porthole to seeing a lot of dark stuff. And it scared me, but I knew they were there. I'm like, they're in my room. And they're like, you're just crazy. Like, what are you talking about? And so when you're seeing that, you think you're crazy, then you start to shut down. And many people, I'm sure listening, as empaths, you've had experiences and you start to shut down. So when you only know trauma, I thought that was the world. I thought the whole world lived in trauma. Like, I just thought that was normal. And so when they said my system was shutting down again, and there's nothing more we can do for you, and I'd lived in that system for over 32 years, I was like, there's got to be something else. And that's where was my breaking point, where I'm like, I was so scared. I didn't know what I was looking at. And that's how I shifted to finding energy work, energy medicine, understanding my body. And it was really cool, because as the experience unfolded, and it wasn't easy. I think I had 3 or 4 dark nights of the soul for sure. Just like the planet's going through right now, right? Where we're going through a dark night of the soul. And those are hard, because you realize, oh my God, I got to unlearn everything. One, I'm not crazy. But that, for me, that journey was 18 years ago, which a lot of people were not as open as they are now. So you're looking, well, who can I share this with? I was like, I had 2 little kids in tow, and my one mentor at the time, who was no longer with us, that was all I could talk to. Everyone else was like, you're a nut job. But what kept me going was my doctor said, I have no clue what you're doing, but your body's repairing. Like, you got to keep doing this. And that's what kept me going, because but there were a lot of days, trust me, you probably know too, on the journey, you're like, I'm out, I'm stopping this. This isn't working. What am I doing here? But then you would come back. It's like riding a bike. You just, once you can't unlearn.
So what were, as you stepped into the world of energy work, what were some of the first things that you did? What were some of the first, like, routines you adopted, healing modalities, etc.?
Yeah, it was really interesting, because I was looking, and someone said, go try this meditation group. But because of the way my system works, it was so slow. I was like, this is so slow. I'm seeing all this stuff, but I didn't understand what was going on. And so it's funny, my sister, who's very asleep, and she still is to this day, like, she is not woken up yet. She goes, I went to this meditation. I met this woman, and yeah, she probably resonate with you. And of course, she becomes my mentor. So I was grateful that she went there, and she became my mentor. We clicked, and she had studied. So she, although she had studied things like body talk and stuff, she was very, very connected. And what she always would say to me was, Tracy, I get there's these methods and modalities, but the way we're wired, and I got it now, she says, you need to follow your own intuition and energy and follow what that's telling you. And that is the new world now, right? It's not really so much, a lot of these old modalities are going because we have to learn to follow inside what Spirit's telling all of us. And we can combine all the things we've learned, but really not get stuck on saying, oh, I got to swirl it this way or do it that way. And so she was teaching me that 18 years ago. And we would work together, and then I would realize emotions and different things. So I started with, let's ground, and let's, I couldn't meditate. And I said to her, something wrong with me? And she goes, no, you're like a computer on super fast speed. Your system is just picking it up so quickly. And so I started to talk to my body, and she goes, but you've always been talking to your body. Listen to what you did. And I went back through ailments. Like when I had asthma so bad and I lived on a mask and an inhaler and a ventilator. And back then, like who did that in the 70s? Not many kids, right? And one day I said, I'm done. Like, get out of my body. I've had enough of you. Get out. And literally it stopped. It stopped.
Wow.
And I went off the medicine and went off all the steroids and everything. And I didn't need a mask anymore. And it was like, but I didn't click what I was doing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Click. And so that was sort of the journey. And then I dabbled, I call it getting off the floor. So I look at it like I always say the God of your understanding, which is this, like this biggest universal presence, right? Divine spirit, what anybody wants to say, that ultimate love. But along there, it's like a high rise with little floors that you can get off of. And I was going down the rabbit holes of the floors. And then one day I'm like, I'm just getting overwhelmed. Why am I not just going direct to the universe, divine energy, like itself? Because when I started, I was like an atheist. I didn't believe in anything. I'm like, you prove it. Like, show me the science, prove it. I ended up working on a set that had like Bruce Lipton and Joe Dispenza and Dr. Emoto, and they were like all sciencey. And I'm like, you show me that. Yeah, that'll prove it. And then I was like, yeah, okay, science is fine, but it's really current. It's not like the big picture. So I was really fortunate to go in these, and spirit put me in all these really cool places where I was like, that's how the body works. That's what's happening. And then I was seeing the images and learning how to talk to the body. And it just over 18 years, it just evolved and things left and changed. And some days it's hard because you look at the world and you're like, no one thinks like me, or no one's, on that path. And I look now and a lot of people are feeling that way as they're waking up. Like, who's out there that's like you and I, right? And they're trying to find people like us. So it's quite a journey.
And I would totally agree with you that it really needs to be a self-guided journey, kind of a self-guided tour through spirituality. And it's really about, like you said, when you opened, asking yourself, tapping into how you feel, right? Really checking in with yourself and following your intuition. And I think that that's hard. I think that's a hard place to get to, especially when we're accustomed to living in a world where we're in our heads and we're accustomed to only existing in a space, in our physical space, right? But when we tap into and open our minds up to the reality that there is so much beyond our physical world, that there is this whole realm out there that is untapped, that's when the magic really starts to happen and we can really tap in and unleash ourselves. But getting to that place is hard. I think taking that first step sometimes, because like you said, the fear of uncertainty, and even if you decide that you want to try it, when you want to get there, how do you start, right? So what is one of the first steps that someone can take in order to begin their journey, in order to tap into their intuition, in order to connect with their soul?
Yeah, well, and one of the things that you said that's really important too, if we look at today, and I think a lot of people can relate, we have grown up for thousands of years with authoritative bodies telling us what to live and how to live. But when we live a very authentic life and we want to wake up and where we're going to the new earth, it's not about having someone tell us how to live, right? It's about us coming together as humanity and really living how we want to live together with love and connection and, supporting each other. So there's a big breakdown going on, but that's also what happens when we wake up. We realize all those paradigms are breaking down. And one of the things I always say to people is, one, you're not going to learn it all in one day. So this is a whole way of living. You and I live this way every day, right? And we live this way till the way we die. So you can't think it's a quick fix. You can't think that I'm going to just wake up and change my system overnight. But I do suggest to people is to look at what's the first area that you really want to work on, which should always be getting in touch with you. And that's why, like, how do you feel about it? Getting in touch with you? Like, look in your environment for one. What in your environment is supporting you and what isn't? And that's a really good place to start, because you can turn around and say even something as simple as, this home doesn't support me, or these people around me aren't supporting me. And then you can start to back it out of what changes do you need to make. And when you look at that, you and I know that's where the fear comes up, because it was like when I was like, oh, I gotta leave my marriage. Oh, I've been wanting to leave this, but what does that look like? Because that's where the fear comes in. Because even though it's dysfunctional, we know how to function in it. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you can start to back out and do the same truthfully, do I feel about this? And truthfully, what needs to change in my life? Spirit, show me. You will have a list probably, 8 pages long of where you want to start. And those things will always change throughout our life, and they
Mm-hmm.
will keep changing.
Yeah, and I love that you said show me. I love that you use those words because that's a phrase that I've used over the years on my journey. And it's amazing how the universe always answers when you just ask, show me. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about, I'd like to hear your commentary on signs and synchronicities and how we can look to those in order to, receive the validation and the affirmation from the universe that we're on the right path.
Oh, I love talking about signs, synchronicities, and wonders because it's so magical when you do, right? And I love this thing. Like I said, show me this, or show me that, or show me what I need to know about this, or open the door. And most people start with repetitive numbers, or most people start and they'll say, "Oh, I turned on the radio and there was a song that I love that connected them to a loved one." I'm like, but that's how they're speaking to you. But then also, there's an interesting thing that I started doing with people that they love. And I noticed because I was doing my own life. So say there's something you're desiring to manifest. And then you're like, well, show me, I'll do something tangible, like maybe a house. I don't know. You want to manifest a house. So it's just easy for everyone to relate to. And then you may drive by a beautiful home or it has the yard you want or something. And I say, you should stop and look at that and say, thank you, God, universe, divine, whatever you say. I want to take the energy of what that is and bring it into my field. And every time you see and you keep aware of the signs or the wonders that are coming up, and you're like, oh, there it is. I'm taking that into my field. I'm taking that energy into my field. The body starts to resonate with it. Spirit resonates with, and then you notice you'll get more of them. And then they'll flow more and more. And then all of a sudden you're noticing your whole day is like that. And even last night, I was talking to a young soul. I love these kids that are in their 20s. And she said, Tracy, I've been doing that. And she said, it's so magical. She was talking about showing her the sign. She wanted this scholarship. And she goes, out of the blue, I got a $25,000 scholarship for school. Just out of the blue. But I was saying, show me the signs about this. I want this. And she goes, I let go of all my thinking because she's in her head. And she says, I kept following the signs and effortlessly it showed up.
That's amazing. I love hearing stories like that because that just shows you, when we step into spirit, when we let our spirit lead the way, then we open up possibilities that we didn't even realize existed. That's when we give the universe the license to surprise us, right? And that's when life becomes really magical and really exciting. As much as I know that, I spent years trying to plan and control and be super detailed and all of that. And it doesn't work. Life doesn't play out according to our plan all the time. So the magic really happens when we're just open-minded. When we just,
I think that's the thing we always have to remind ourselves. I still remind myself that today. I'm like, all right, this is what I think, but we all know spirit's going to have a different plan and it will be better than what any of us think. I remind myself that, especially now every day, because we look at how things are shifting in the world. And I'm like, well, we might think it's going to go this way, but spirit always works for our highest and best interest. So it's going to be totally different. I always say that because I was a control freak when I was younger. I got to plan, got to make sure everything's, right. And I had to learn to let that go and say, all right, it is what it is. Spirit's going to do the best plan.
Yeah. And that's really the key, is to have faith, right? That's where faith and trust comes in, and surrender. When we trust that what we're going to get is as good as, if not better than what we wanted for ourselves.
I always say trust, no believe. It's one of my favorite sayings. I have mugs on them, everything, everywhere. Trust, no believe. And it is difficult because people say, well, how do you know that? I'm like, I don't know. I just know. I just know in my core. I've seen certain things, but I just know. And they're like, do you question it? I said, I don't anymore. I used to, but now I'm like, nope, I don't care what it looks like out there in the world. I know this is going to happen for the betterment of all humanity. And 99% of the time, it does.
Yeah. And that's really, That's so important to just trust that deep knowingness, that intuition, and part with the need to have physical world evidence, physical world validation all the time. So many people have said, clients have asked me before, well, how do I know that this works? Just challenging me. And I said, you know what, just trust the process, trust me, trust yourself, trust your spirit. And then lo and behold, they start to see signs and synchronicities, and there's an organicness and an ease, and their life just starts to unfold in a way that it hasn't before.
And I think understanding that people forget there's a process, right? So if something, I always say to people, if someone's like, well, this relationship's over, I don't want to leave until someone else shows up. I say, it doesn't work that way. You've got to clean out the old and then allow, so there's pain and there's a little bit of heartache, and then the new can show up better, because that will just bring the old in and you're going to go through the same experience. Mm-hmm. And that's where it can get a little hard, because we want it just all to show up in an ease and grace. And it does when you look back, but we do also have to clean out. It's going to be a little bit poopy along the way. It can be a little dirty,
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that's such an important part of the process, because I think so many people, and again, I say this with no judgment, but just, keep the placeholders there until something better comes along, whether it's a relationship or a job or a house or whatever it is. But you're so right. We so have to intentionally clear the space. And the analogy that I always use is like cleaning out your fridge, right? It's like if you come home with all of these amazing organic groceries, you're not going to have any room for them unless you clear the shelves, unless you wipe them out, take them out, clean them, do the deep cleaning, right? Do the hard work, do the heavy lifting of the spiritual journey, right? And then you'll have room, and everything will have its place, and there will be organization, and there will be it'll just be have a different energy to it. So I think that's super important.
But that's hard for people to wrap around, because none of us want to feel pain. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like I thought I'd felt a lot of pain in my life because I had. But when I started to do the work, and this was deep pain because it's a cellular level where you realize, I got to stop doing this. I got to stop doing that, or I got to change. And you're talking to yourself of what you need to change and shift. And that also means changing your whole world. So it's hard to let go of people we know that have served us for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So what do you believe your life purpose is?
People ask me that, and I always just say, it's just to serve. It really is. And I know it sounds simple, but before I want to back up so people understand this. I've been in this world now, as I said, 18 years of learning myself in this space for, the last 10 years of moving and shifting and changing and evolving and working through how I want to work with people. Mm-hmm. But before that, I was always in and out of stuff. Okay, I'll do this job on board, or something would happen or I'd change. And I ended up in the banking world. And then I had this crossroads where I said I could sell my soul to the devil, or I could go do what I love, which is in serving people and how this is. And I took a leap of faith, because tell me, like when you're being offered hundreds of thousands of dollars as a single mom to go back downtown, and I'm like, I can't do it I'm going to serve God, but this better work out, the way it's going to work. You don't know, you take this leap of faith, and it's it's just better than ever I could imagine. And I'm here, and I would get up every day doing this. I would say it was like Star Trek days where they just do what they do. There's no money, there's no change of hands. They still do what we want to do. And it's to serve in the best way I can to help guide people through this massive change that's going on in the new earth, as we're deconstructing the old earth and moving into the new, and just being able to be a solid, steady guide. Because a lot of what rattles people out there now doesn't rattle me. And somebody asked me the other day, so it doesn't rattle you? I said, I feel like I've been in boot camp for 18 years to prepare for this. Like it's like somebody kind of, and I don't want it to come across the wrong way, but it was like, okay, I get why Spirit put me through so much junk so long ago. So I could be steady and say, here's a place you can feel at home. You can be yourself. There's no judgment. Learn to be empowered, and we're all equal, and we'll just sort of feel this together. before I go to bed every night, I just say, Spirit, did I do the best I could to serve you today? And if not, show me where I could do it better. And that's it. It's just to guide
I
how
love
I
that.
can. Yeah.
So beautiful. So what are the different forums in which you serve? I know you have a couple books. I'd love to hear about the many, many different ways in which you serve.
Yeah, I do a lot more now. I used to do, like everybody, you guys got to be willing to change your direction on a dime. I remember I had a goal. I'm going to see 30 people a week. I had no idea what that looked like. I hit this goal and I was like booking 9, 10 months out. I had no life. I was like, I wasn't tired, but I'm like, that was kind of weird. Why did you give that to me? But I got it, right? I was like, so now I do a lot more group work. And it's kind of funny because my mentor so she's been gone for about 5 years now. So when I first started with her, I bet she was about 2 years in, she said to me, you're going to write like 4 or 5 books. And I'm like, yeah, you're funny. I laughed at her. It took me 8 years to get my first one out, which was it launched last December. Just my story, simple things, right? But then I started channeling, all these prayers started channeling. So then we launched that one. And then they kept coming at a stronger rate. So we have another one coming out. So it was like, God just like, so I looked back and like, she knew something I didn't know. And I was pooing it. I was like, no, that wouldn't happen. I'm not a writer. My ex-husband's a writer. It's not me. You're picking up on his stuff. And so to me, that's a way to get something where I really feel now we need things that are on the fly because it is changing every day. Mm-hmm. And I really like working in big groups because the energy right now, people want to say, well, I need my own time, my individual time. There is a place for that. But if you can pick up on the energy of the collective, however you do that, however you serve, whether you're going to, things that are like, I don't like calling them services. I don't even know what I'm going to call them, but where you come together and everybody's having a good time. Yeah. But the energy of that right now is so potent. It will, and I've seen this over and over, it will increase what you're manifesting by 1,000% right now. If you can be vulnerable with other people, it's huge. Yeah, it's huge. So it's different. And you probably do this too. I can see in your field, when you're following spirit, when we follow spirit, don't be surprised if something you liked us doing today is not there tomorrow, because the spirit says change. You have to change, because if you'd asked me 5 years ago if I would do things how I do them now, I would have told you probably no. But when spirit says do it, I learned one thing: never say no. And that was a hard one to learn. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. Even my people around me, they're like, uh-oh, what are we doing now? She's got another download. Where are we going? Oh my God, spirit says this, we got to follow it. So, and it's hard for people because they like the consistency, but I said, spirit is about changing all the time. Spirit is about how you show up. And I want to teach people that don't be afraid to change on a dime.
Right. Yeah. I love that. And it's when we get those channeled messages, we really do have to strike when the iron's hot. Because I feel like that energy, when you first get that download, when you first get the idea, is so incredibly potent. And that's when you have to be ready to shift. Yeah. And trust, right? Move out of that place of fear. Because if we sit with it too long, then that's where the ego starts to bubble up again, right? That's where the fear comes up, the uncertainty. I don't know, I'm fear of failure, all of that comes up. Don't give your ego a chance to come into play. Just strike while the iron's hot, trust, and then move, take those spiritually aligned action steps. Okay, now that I've decided to embark on this new path, what do I need to do? What do I need to, how do I need to rally my troops? Who do I need to call? What do I need to do to make this a reality? And just keep going and don't look back.
Exactly. And trust in that process. Like, it's kind of funny. Something I do that drives people nuts, and everybody that, around me, they got it now, but I'll be like, they say, why don't you have a list throughout the year of your events? I'm like, because I don't put them up till God tells me. They're like, what? So it literally is that. I'll get a message. All right, this one's on that day. So my poor people go nuts because they're like, okay, here it comes. And then I just start channeling. So because I don't know. I don't know what's happened at that time. Like, I just say whatever happens, and it's always, there's something big happening on those dates. And I say to people, you'll get this in your own life. Like, if you hear spirit say to you, you got to go there, Don't
Yeah.
sit there, like you said, just say, okay, I gotta move. I gotta go there. I don't know why. I gotta go there this weekend because I heard to do it. And I guarantee you 100% of the time, there's going to be something magical come out of it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I find that I follow that same approach when I write my content. I have tried to get out in front of it, to get weeks ahead, stack up my articles for weeks into the future so that I can clear the space to work on other things and kind of time block. But I never can seem to get ahead. And I don't think it's a function of, I don't think it's an issue of lack of time. I just think it's an issue of like spirit knows how I work best. And so my best, most soul-based inspired content comes when I have a little bit of creative pressure. So now I've just accepted that that's like much like you don't have your events planned out many months in the future. I don't have my content planned out many months in the future. I have ideas. I kind of have a repository. I have keywords, certain ideas I want to talk about, but the best content happens, comes from life experiences, right? From like losing my cell phone one morning for like 3 hours. And then I jumped in my car without my cell phone to drive my kids to school. And I look up and my neighbors, I can actually see it now. I have it on their lawn. It's a sign that says slow down. And I'm like, it was one of those like neighborhood safety signs, like slow down children and pets at play. But I was like, it's no coincidence that I happened to look up at that moment. So my next piece was all about, slowing down and just taking time. And so I agree with you that, it's very powerful when we allow it to unfold organically.
And that's the thing that's difficult. If people are, I know a lot of people, they'll say like, how do you women and men get out there with your businesses and stuff like that? How do we move that in the energy world? And I said, it's exactly what you're saying. I said, you got to dump all the old stuff you've learned, because spirit doesn't work on a timeline of a business plan. And this is how it works. That's not how spirit works. So you're so right, because I'm just like you. I'm like, well, I don't know, no message channel today. Like I used to have people say, oh, you got to do your YouTube videos like this and your Instagram. I'm like, I can't. Mm-hmm. If nothing comes like, or you'll feel forced. So I love that this is though part of the new earth. It's not going to be this whole let's plan everything, because that's not how life is. You can't plan it. It is. And that's the best messages. And that's why you and I live that way, because we get the best messages when we're just like, oh, there it comes. Okay, here it comes. It's channeling.
Yeah. And we listen, and then we don't analyze, how the message comes or discredit the source at all. Like if it's a message from a perfect stranger, take it in, that person was put on your path for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. And if people can start to open up more to allowing that and stop that sort of rigidness, because I even know when I moved over here into this world, because I was buying, selling companies when I was 26, right? My first one, and business plans, and in there, I let it all go. And people are like, are you crazy? You were like, the business plan. I'm like, that's not how spirit works. I can't run it like this. I have to just follow spirit. If I follow my butt, I follow my butt. I'm just going to see what happens. And it was, a lot of people had a hard time wrapping their head around. They're like, what are you doing? You're like flying by the seat of your pants. Like you have to have projection. I said, nope, it's whatever spirit has. And here we are all these years later, and I will never change that. But it is hard for other people on the other side to understand when we're like, well, we can't. It's just whatever spirit tells us.
Right. I think there is value though in going through the old paradigm, kind of the old way, because then we have experience with one way of working, and that's what provides the contrast, right? That's what we put into our vortex. We've got experiences working a few different ways, and that's when we can really tap into and connect with the way where we are most productive and most connected.
And well, you mold it, right? You morph it into your alignment, what's truthfully like working for you. And so, yeah, it's for everybody listening, just keep following that inner knowing, because we're in such a powerful time of change and manifestation, but we're coming into a new way that's going to support all of this going forward in ways we could never imagine.
Yeah, so powerful. So we're just getting ready to wrap up here. We've got a couple more minutes, but I just wanted to turn it over to you to talk about anything that you'd like to talk about to wrap up, and maybe part with some words of wisdom for our viewers and listeners, and then also let them know where they can contact you directly if they would like to.
Yeah. Well, for people right now, I know there's, as we said, we're going through a dark night of the soul. We're birthing a new earth. So remember that. Don't be afraid, but celebrate the endings of what we're going to see come over the next 6 months, and then we'll rebuild over the next few years. Celebrate them. Don't mourn. You might grieve they're going, but celebrate them, because on the other side is a world that's going to be so much more harmonious for everybody. And your dreams and visions, if you're focusing on them now and you're planting them now, you're going to see where you're going to be needed in this new earth. And it's really going to become, over the next few years, a much, much, much different place. And if people can remember that and keep doing your inner work, the connection is what's going to get you through the birthing process. We're in the birthing pains right now, but the connection to spirit, the connection to the people and the communities that resonate with you will get you through this, and you will come out like beaming. You will be so happy that you came through this. Yeah, it's exciting times.
It really is. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful message. Thank you.
You're
And
welcome.
thank you so much for being on my show today. I've so loved talking with you, and you've had such rich content to share. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here today because, like I said, the world is changing, but don't be afraid of the change. Like, embrace it. We chose to be here. We've been waiting 2,000 years to be here. So don't be afraid. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you to our viewers and listeners. I appreciate you. As you know, I believe the time is a choice. And I'm grateful that you've carved time out of your day to be here with Reverend Tracy L. Clark to hear her powerful message. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day. Bye.